Hello and welcome to my new miniature channel. Here I'm just going to post various painting and miniature videos. Now this first one was for a competition piece that I was trying particularly hard to do well, and I will be making the Warhammer model of the Dwarf Slayer and also be constructing my own base for it. Now the model was quickly built and glued before drilling a hole to the bottom to add a painting handle. Now I had 3D printed this large troll, and I wanted to cut up the troll and have it laying dead upon the base, so I sand and cut the troll until it fits on the base, testing with the miniature from time to time. Then I add a little bit of green stuff, just to cover up gaps and holes, and then get on to spraying an undercoat for both the troll and the dwarf. Now although it's not shown here, I did lay down a base colour with the airbrush, of red for the dwarf and green for the troll. I then take it over to the painting table and begin with this light brown, which at some point I will cover with a wash. I then mix a very dark blue-green and begin to layer on the spikes and armoured panels upon the troll's back. Now I lay a base for everything that's going to be red, especially along the spine, within the fingers, and some parts of the ears and mouth. Now this is the club with a speed paint added over the top, just to get those very dark recesses. I then begin to highlight the various teeth and horns and bones, not to mention the fingers, and I believe the eyes. Then I come on to what was perhaps the longest part of this entire thing, was slowly going over and over and over with various colours of green to make highlights atop the troll, each time going slightly lighter, and by the end, adding in a sandy khaki colour, and just hitting the raised edges and the sides that would be towards the light. I then threw a dark wash over a lot of the back of the miniature, trying to get into all the crevices that I couldn't paint very well, before returning to the red and beginning to add the red highlights. This took time and patience, but soon I was not only doing the red highlights, but also adding in some green shadows, where I'd messed up with the 3 hours of glazing I did prior. I finished the crest by following along with the small details upon it, and just drawing in lines to highlight them. This, I thought, came out a little too bright, and a little too jarring, so to contrast a lot of it, I added a red glaze over all these parts, just to tone down the brightness and to tie in all the colours. Now we finally move on to the dwarf. We get a thick grey-white to cover his shorts, as it is very opaque and good at covering, before I move to this muted brown and begin undercoating all the skin tones. It was perhaps the skin tones that I found hardest, since I'm not great at painting human flesh, let alone dwarf flesh. Now I gave it a very heavy brown-black wash, so we could start working on lighter skin tones and building it up. Whilst waiting for that to dry, I went in and blacked out the weapons and any metallics, as I find that metallic paints always prefer to sit upon black. Now we hit back with the skin tone, and just slowly building it up over all the muscles and over all the body. Now we lay down the white colour of the shorts, and I always think it's best to not go straight white, and add in some kind of beige or bone colour. Here you can see it with all the bases and the first highlight on the skin complete. Next, we do these tricky freehand blue lines. That took some time to do and a very detailed brush. Most of them are not perfect, and not even equal or straight, but they give an illusion of what I was trying to catch. I'll go back later with a little bit of bone colour and begin to sort up some of the broken lines. Now we are on to anything that is leather, so we're covering belts and handles, before we hit the axes with a bright silver, and add in details with gold, such as this wristband and parts of the belt. It's also at this time that we add reds and oranges to the beard, and get that classic Slayer look. And with all that said, here is the final project.